of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Conversation involved. That's my phone.
Good to see such robust conversations. A lot of all come together. And we got all the wonderful marriage advice and official advice.
Marriage?
It's good. It's free. It's free over there. Just stop. You can walk out. You got all. Anyway, let's do a roll call, please.
Town of Ashland, Mr. Chambers,
Here. Yes.
Chair McGraw,
Okay, present.
Charles City County, Mr. Atkins.
Brother.
Mr. Patterson. Chesterfield County, Mr. Carroll,
I'm here.
Mr. Davy,
Here.
Mr. Holland, Mr. Engel,
Here.
Dr. Miller,
Here.
Mr. Petrowski,
Here.
and Ms. Schneider. Here. Richland County, Mr. Cosby,
Here.
Mr. Lyle, Mr. Spoonhour,
Here.
Mr. Waters. Hanover County, Mr. David,
Present.
Ms. Dibble, Mr. Ledbetter, Ms. Pritchard, Mr. Waddell.
Here.
Henrico County, Mr. Bast,
Here.
Mr. Cooper, Mr. Mackey, Reverend Nelson, Mr. Rogish,
Here.
Mr. Schmidt, Ms. Roundtree.
Here.
New Kent County, Mr. Hathaway, Ms. Pearson, Vice Chair Stewart.
Here.
Powhatan County, Mr. Donati, Mr. McClung,
Here.
Mr. Powers, Ms. Winall. City of Richmond, Mr. George, Ms. Jordan, Ms. Knight. Here. Dr. Newbill. Here. Thank you. That concludes the roll call for attendance. We do have a quorum.
Thanks, and I'd like to recognize a new member of our commission, Zakia Knight from Richmond City Planning. Thank you and welcome. I hope you'll find us to be a friendly group to work with.
Lots of already entertainment.
Well, who's listening to the marriage advice earlier?
It wasn't very good, was it?
We have two members that would like to participate remotely. And I'm just gonna, to knock out both, I'm gonna ask them to unmute and state their reason why. So that we can, one, hear them, and two, also you can all hear the reason why they're participating remotely. So, Jordan Stewart, can you state your reason?
A scheduling conflict.
Thank you. And Misty Roundtree,
Also a scheduling conflict.
thank you. So these fall in line with reasons why we could participate remotely. We have a quorum, a physical quorum, so there are motion to confirm that the chair's decision to approve or the members' request to participate from a remote location was in conformance with the PlanRVA Commission policy for remote participation of members. And the voice vote remotely participating member can be heard by all persons at the primary or central meeting location.
No movement there.
Moved and second. Excellent. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Excellent. Any considerations for amendment to our agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on. Public comment time. This is time for anybody from the members of the public that you'd like to speak. I don't see any online. All right, we're moving on. And approval of our February 13th meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve our minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain, sir.
Abstained by Mr. Waddell and abstained by Ms. Knight. Thanks. And moving on to the chair. So we discussed this morning the key imperatives for 2026. And so they were moved down to just 5 key imperatives. And then we discussed rank ordering them as things that we would like for the director and PlanRVA to focus in on. And they have been updated. You can see them updated on the screen here. They're slightly different from what you may have seen in your packet. They're the same imperatives. They've just been reworked so that there's a ranking system to the priorities. And yeah,
That was efficient.
well, shoot, with that, we had an efficient executive committee meeting, gave an extra 4 minutes to get that done. But yes, I'm not gonna read them off to you, but I do want to share them with you, and if there is concern, thoughts, you can voice them now, you can voice them later, you can call me later, whatever. I just think it's important to see. We will also put that into a way we can measure so that we can kind of evaluate how effective PlanRVA was in each of those categories, and also try to make it into a narrative so that we can have both data and a story to go along with it. Not seeing any thoughts on that. I'm gonna move our rotation of officers. I'll be coming off as chair. You can't, George Stewart will be coming on as chair next time, and our succession in order. Everyone is prepared to move on nicely. It will probably be the first time that each order has gone in like the last few years, because we've had all kinds of changes, but looking forward to that. And that kind of, oh, one more thing, I said it to our commission, our executive committee, but I think it's also important just to recognize a group, FOLAR, which is the Friends of the Lower Appomattox River, recognized PlanRVA for its community service, and there's going to be an award ceremony May 1st and recognition, and it's just exciting to note that not only is PlanRVA effective within the region, but the groups outside of our region recognize the impacts that this organization has, and I think even in our executive committees, we mentioned someone from outside of the state, outside of the country, even wanting to come here to discuss the things that this organization is doing. So I'm just really excited about that. Moving on, then we'll have Sean Davis. Can you give us the update on our audit, finance, and facility?
I can. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, members of the PlanRVA board. As y'all may know, audit and finance was led by Mr. Howell from Chesterfield County for quite some time and did a stellar job. Sometimes it was turbulent. We worked on a number of different things over the years, and he helped build up the reserves, get some things stabilized, did a phenomenal job. And right now, due to some personal matters, Mr. Howland is going to step back from that role. And there were a couple of conversations that took place, and some folks did ask if I would be willing to step into that role. Before I said yes, I served as an interim for one meeting. Obviously, I spoke with Mr. Howling, called a number of folks here that in leadership roles, and we talked about that. So the first item that we need to talk about is I would like to see if there's a consensus, as Mr. Howland has voluntarily stepped away, and there's a desire to get a chair in place as quickly as possible. If there would be any issues, certainly no, we don't vote on it, but I'd like to put forward, with your permission, Mr. Chairman, I am willing to serve as chair of the Finance Committee, but only if there's a consensus or no objection from the full committee. So I'd just like to ask if you entertain any discussion about that, sir.
I would strongly encourage you in moving into succession. You have the time, you have the experience, and I think it would be a golden opportunity for the organization.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
And as we discussed, you were looking to fill this term, not looking to carry on. So if there is someone in the future who would like to step into that role,
Absolutely.
it's wide open. We're just trying to fulfill this one term. And the reason why I selected you was your experience with it. We were changing over different ways of looking at our finance. We had a new director of finance that just didn't want another change.
Yes, sir. No.
So, yes.
Mr. Chair, is it a chair appointment or is it in the bylaws, or is it something that we elect? Because if it is, I'll just make a motion to make him chair.
It's a chair appointment. I think he's just looking for consensus that there is no objection for that appointment. And I understand that. Yes.
No objection from myself, and I support Mr. Davis 100%, so.
Thanks.
Ditto.
And you're allowed to ditto.
So, well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I would I guess, consult with the attorney, I guess, then I would be appointed as chair. And so with that, I'll move into the next item that we had discussed during my interim appointment. Ms. Shepherd, our CFO, Director Schickel had spoken with me about a number of different things with audit and finance. And many people may remember a number of years ago, we were going through our audit. And we decided that it would be a good idea to always keep the door open to look at different audit firms and maybe go out with RFPs for that. And there was consensus that we would start working on that. In the meantime, we have hired a new CFO, and there was some talk about upgrading our FMS or financial management system and moving away from the current financial management system that we have, which really just is not able to support the operations at the level they need to be supported for PlanRVA, the TPO, and the support to the CVTA. So I took some time, some deliberation, made some phone calls, and it is my recommendation that we would maintain the current audit company at this time while we move into changing our FMS. To your point that you made earlier, Mr. Chairman, just a few moments ago, creating some of that stability. We've never had a problem. I want to be very clear. We've never had a problem with our audit firm. We've always had very good audits. They've been thorough and comprehensive. But just in due diligence, always looking to have folks be the best that we can get. We're going to open that up. At this time, I think the recommendation would be changing our financial management system, which certainly needs to be changed. We are running on QuickBooks, and we need to move away from QuickBooks and integrate into a higher level financial management system. That was actually confirmed yesterday with no prompting from PB Mayers, who said that handling finances in QuickBooks has just become something that's just no longer really viable for organizations our size. And so a recommendation is going to be made that we go ahead and maintain our current audit firm, again, never having any issues with them and never having any material findings in our audits, to move over, and it comes from my strong recommendation that we do this, and then move over and start to integrate into our new financial management system. With that, the cost is anywhere, and there is a range here, between $40,000 and $60,000. And that'll depend on what type of program we actually implement and how much of that program is going to be worked over early on and how much will be ongoing. We are going to clip the CVTA for about 25 grand. So they've agreed to that. So that lowers our cost a little bit. And they certainly receive benefit from it. A question did come up, and I do want to be open about this. There are licensing agreements with FMSs. So there are going to be ongoing licensing costs, but that would be the case with any financial management system. So we'll have an upfront cost, but we will have an ongoing cost for financial management software to make sure that it's up to date. With that, as costs change and we cost share with CVTA and some of the other organizations, as those costs move, then very likely proportionally that cost share would increase with the other users. But at the end of the day, that's what we need to be looking at because it'll be handled on our side, PlanRVA side of the budget. You'll see the whole number, and then it'll be broken down in the budget with the cost sharing. But it comes with a strong recommendation that we do maintain the audit firm, so we're not changing audit firms and changing the financial management system at the same time. And with your permission, our CFO is here. I don't know if she has anything to add, but she's certainly here to answer any questions. And of course, Director Schickel is here as well. And I've spoken with a number of folks and said we're going to bring this presentation forward. It is kind of a big deal, and so that's why I want to give as much information as possible should anybody have any questions. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I do have a question. Will we be running dual systems at the time, or how we're going to transition?
Lauren, do you want to?
I'm Lauren Shepherd. I think I met most of you. I started back in January. I'm the new CFO. There's a couple different schools of thought about running dual systems.
Ms. Shepherd, could you move just so the mics pick you up?
Yes.
Thank you.
For the microphone, I'm Lauren Shepherd. I'm the new CFO. I started back in January. I think I've met most of you. Nice to see you all. There's a few schools of thought about running parallel systems. The last technology migration I did, we did not run parallel. We did a lot of testing on the front end. We reconciled down to the penny, and then we picked a date and we went live. It was very successful. We're leaving some room for that possibility to run parallel, but I'd like to hold off on committing which way we're gonna go as we work with the vendor. Staff is still reviewing which vendor we'll go with.
So what's your target date?
We would like to be live for the next fiscal year, but that's a very ambitious and tight turnaround. So to be determined, I'd love to get back to the commission when we have a final vendor selection.
And with that, sir, when we do go over to full migration, even if we ran parallel, at the point that we go completely with the new financial management system, there will be a reconcile down to the penny on the old system. So we'll be able to see what took place. And if it is a dual integration, that'll be tracked through there as well and reported.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you very much. The question I have, two questions. So when we do choose a new audit firm, typically it's for more than a year, isn't it? Like a 3-year or 5 years?
Correct. Yeah.
3 years. So I would just, and I always trust, I've been very successful by trusting people that are smarter than me. So I would trust that you're weighing the benefit of setting up the system with the new auditing team for the next 3 years versus the change of an audit team while you're going through that.
So the goal would be to engage with the current auditor for 1 single year. And then do an RFP for a new audit firm. Looking at.
I just didn't know if there's benefits of, I don't know if the auditors, if it matters how the systems are set up or if there's a way to set up for the long term. But it just sounds like you guys are all over it.
Sure.
Yes.
I think we might be a little presumptuous here. I mean, we'll have to put an RFP out for a bid. And it very well could be that the same auditor, if they put back in for it, could win the bid. So we can't assume that it's gonna be a different auditor when we haven't gone through an RFP process yet. That makes us look like we've already made a decision.
I'll speak to that. So, yeah, and that may be my fault. I may not have clarified that quite as well. The thought process is that we would not simply send out an RFP. We would maintain the current auditor for 1 more year as we migrate over. So thank you for bringing that up, Mr. Carroll. It is not, we're not saying that we're gonna just go ahead and retain this auditor, which we would normally do through an RFP for a 3-year contract, 3 fiscal year contract, or 3 calendar year contract, my apologies. What we are asking, and I appreciate you bringing this up, is that if the board so sees that it's prudent to keep the current auditor for 1 more year while we do the migration, then do the RFP. And to your point, maybe the current auditor does win out, but they'll have to enter into that competitive situation again.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to clarify that for the public that may be watching. We have not already made a decision. We are going through the public process as we always do.
Thank you for that clarification.
Any other comments, questions? Thank you, Ms. Shepherd.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
respectfully, so is that consensus amongst the full committee?
Oh, good point. Yeah. Is there?
Mr. Chairman, that's
Not,
legal
if
counsel.
not, if you're approving, let me just clarify, make sure that I'm saying it correctly. The reason why there's not an RFP coming out now, we're at the end of our contract with our current auditor. We'd expect an RFP to come out or extend with our current one, but we are changing our system, our financial management system, and having an RFP plus a new system just seemed a bit much to do it at the same time. So that therefore, under the recommendation of the appointed chair Davis at the time for that committee, it was recommended that we hold off on RFP, extend the contract for 1 year so that we can get all of our books in a row, all of our information in a row, and then go through the regular process. Did it sum it up correctly?
Yes, sir, but you did.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, just trying to be a stickler, I suppose, and we could defer to legal counsel on this, but because this is a financial expenditure decision, I would make a recommendation or a motion to actually recommend the approval to the full body of what the finance chair had just recommended. And then, and I think it would require a voice vote to do that. but I'll defer to legal counsel for that.
That's fine, Mr. Chair.
Second.
All right, there's been a recommendation to approve the recommendation of the finance committee decision, and there's been a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? All right, well, thank you. I do appreciate that healthy discussion on it, because we're talking about localities' money and it's an important thing. Public outreach and engagement, Tim Davey.
Jeremy, I've been, more of a participant than leader over the last 45 days, so we've tuned in, done the agenda. Particularly, do you want to address the first, or should we just go to the second one?
I won't skip the opportunity to just call out the newsletter was in the packet. Kristen's here today. She does a phenomenal job putting it together, and it highlights our regional symposium that we hosted in March. And so would encourage you to check it out, and the links to the other updates that we have in the newsletter. The goal with that, just to kind of remind everyone, is that for those of you who do reports back at your local governing bodies, the hope is that that newsletter is a useful recap of information that you want to bring back to your home community. And we would certainly love it if you wanted to forward it on to any newsletter distributions that you have in your district. So we hope that the content is useful for you as a member of this board, but also is something that you can share in your networks to talk about what's happening in the region. Thanks, Mr. David.
Ms. Schneider took the leadership position on our second issue. Will you take that one for us, please?
Yeah, so we had a joint meeting last week of the public outreach and engagement, as well as the CTAG advisory meeting, joint meeting. And so we were talking about a couple things. We were talking about the long range transportation plan and community engagement with that, but we were also talking about the work we've been doing in the equity working group around an honorarium policy. And we put forward for a vote to move this to the individual committees to be approved next time if they meet. A pilot policy for CTAC members to receive an honorarium of $50 per meeting to attend. We've been noticing a lot of in the CTAC, because it's all citizens mostly. They're not they're not elected officials. They're not forced to be there. There's been a drop off of attendance, and so we are looking at a lot of larger areas, but with this one in particular, seeing if we make it worth people's time. And we've had some, Mr. Hathaway is on the, and he said that, he comes all the way from New Kent. And so he's the only one that comes. And so, if you're driving all the way from New Kent, that's a commitment you're making, and it's a time and it's a cost. And so we just feel that it would be, we want to see if it will increase attendance. And there are some localities and some organizations that haven't been sending anybody because I think they can't get the commitment from someone to take the time out of their day. And so this is a way of us trying to incentivize. I think we referred to it as a carrot and a stick kind of situation. So carrot is the $50, and that would be something if you're representing a locality or a organization that you're getting paid already to be here. The dollars would not go to those the person themselves. They would go to the organization, and they could determine whether or not they wanted to keep it for the organization for their own outreach, or if it goes to the person. If you are a community citizen, it would go directly to you. And then also, along with that, we would have a second attendance policy that would basically say if you didn't attend for 2 meetings in a row or 3 altogether of all the meetings of the year, you would get a talking, or you get a talking to. I'm sorry. It's hard. Staff
really
reach
scary,
out
doesn't
to
it?
you. and
Would you like to
say-
continue your service?
Would reach out to you and say, hey, or the head of your organization, hey, is there a reason that this is happening? Is there a health issue? Is there a issue with transportation? Is there, or do we need to look at getting someone else on the committee to be able to get better attendance? And so this is basically a pilot program for the year starting in July. To see what we can do to improve attendance of the CTAC committee and try to get better outcomes from that. So I don't know, Ken's been helping with all this, and I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Ken, but they were both approved. One of them, there was some discussion that some folks we had were concerned, well, why are we, saying we're going to pay people to be here, that they should be honored to be on the, and that's fine, that's everybody has a right to think that. We just feel that it's important to honor people's time and energy and effort that they take to get here, and so we want to get the best outcomes possible, so. Ken, did you want to say anything?
You covered it, thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the only maybe amendment I would make to that is that we would not have staff reach out to folks that sit on the commission to inquire, that would be done through maybe the leadership and I believe you mentioned maybe someone from their organization instead of having staff contacting commission members of their board, inquiring about their attendance, that maybe that ought to be done either through the leadership or
Correct.
through a peer. So staff would not be placed in a situation that they're looking at a member's attendance. But it does make sense, I think, for folks, and we do that back home sometimes if folks aren't able to make certain meetings, we'll have to, inquire as to why, and those types of things. But I believe it's better from either peers or leadership.
Was Jez for CTAC members, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Well, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Well, I think somebody needs to contact them because I have two members of my district that have called me up and said that they're not getting invites to the meeting. So you can't come to a meeting that you don't know about. And that was something I was gonna inquire about today. I've got, and one of those people is probably gonna end up stepping down and we'll replace them with somebody else, but they're not getting the information. So you can't come to a meeting you don't know about. So someone has to contact them and make sure that they know that there's a meeting coming. So we gotta figure something out, because there's, at least for the two people that are from my district that serve on CTAC, they're not getting the information. I got it from both of them.
Mr. Carroll, I'm aware as of last week of one of those individuals, and so we are looking to figure out whether or not our system for notifying emails are not getting through to him. So at least one of your two appointees, we're actively trying to figure out what the disconnect is. I not only appreciate Mr. Davis's comments that it does put staff in a difficult position, but I think also we could, because it's a citizen group and they do not have some of the same supports that many of you do through your locality, we could potentially build in more steps in the notification process to do reminders and pick up the phone. Not all of our members of the CTAC are on their computers all day. And so I think we recognize that as volunteers, we might need to do a couple of different things for the notification process for that. So I'm really open to improving that and would like to do that. So I think in addition to the proposed attendance and compensation policies that are coming forward to the policy board next month, we can as staff think about how to be more responsive to the needs of those citizen volunteers and make sure that we're not assuming things about how they function that are not the way that they are.
Well, Chair, so I'm wondering if maybe our people that are appointed we might send them an email also that would be coming from the county as well to remind them.
I think that's a great suggestion, that we maybe need to talk to our own staff
Yeah.
about making sure that they're aware what the yearly schedule is, because we put these
Yeah,
schedule. This
They're
is not like we
together,
schedule
yeah.
a meeting today for a meeting next month. We have a schedule of this already set up.
Correct.
So certainly you should make sure that they get an email with, or a hard copy mail to them saying, this is the schedule for the year, this is the time and the place, something.
Now, that answers, our citizen, the locality, government ones, but I mean, other individual organizations, are we having problems with them getting emails, do we know?
Well, no, we are aware of this situation, because the citizen member reached out and said, I don't know the specifics of what they said, but basically like, I haven't been to a meeting, I haven't heard from you.
Okay.
I think it's a hard thing to know, so I think we can pick up the phone and call folks and find out, are you getting our emails and just not able to come, or is it a communication thing? If they, to Mr. Davis's point, I think if it is determined that it's not a communication issue, but it is a absenteeism issue, then I think we can work with the CTAC chair and peers to do the outreach that he's describing.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, Chair, do we have a sense of what the budget will be for this?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, so we did an analysis of if, for example, every CTAC seat were filled, which it's not currently, there are some at-large organizations that just haven't been selected by the TPO. But if every seat were filled and every alternate attended along with their regular appointee, it would be 40 people. And 40 times $50 is $2,000 times 6 meetings is $12,000 a year.
And that's if everybody, and right now I think.
So that was the maximum obligation, if you will, that this policy could incur should it be approved.
At the point, there's only, I think we determined what, like on average 17 people that are showing up maybe?
Not even that.
Yeah, so, yeah,
On average,
so
probably.
that's what I'm saying, so I mean, it's.
So is it our?
definitely-
Yeah, two questions. One, we're just talking on the side. CTAC falls under PlanRVA and not RTPO.
It does not. It's our TPO. We're just bringing, this is an information
Okay.
item. Yeah.
And
But
then,
we can't vote to do that because it's not our organization, right? We
No,
could just
it's
make a
not an
recommendation
action
back.
item. I was only updating what
It's-
we're doing.
Yeah. This is
Then
just
they'll
a heads up.
be-
Because
Alright.
PlanRV
I
would
was
be
like, yeah, we
processing.
can't make a decision.
PlanRV, it would be processing it, but it would be a
But
TPO
I'm okay
policy.
right, so I think we need to, as we consider this, I think we need to add the administration costs of this, because it's not gonna be light, somebody's got to send checks every month or quarter or however that's done. And I also would want to understand why we don't do it for other citizen volunteers, such as, we have folks here that are their time's as valuable as somebody attending CTAC, so are we considering those as well?
So
Go ahead. No, I was gonna say that, I mean, I think we decided to do it this way, and start on this pilot program with CTAC because they are all citizens. And so, that was a good way of us getting a feel of how much it would help attendance improvement. And so it's a pilot for a reason, and we might implement it into other areas as well. Is that correct, Martha? Yes.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why we wanted to provide this as an update to this body is to know that this process is tracking on the TPO side of the house. And so if there was an interest in what you're describing, we wanted to be able to provide the opportunity for that discussion. On your first question, our staff did do an evaluation of this, our finance team did an evaluation of the proposed policy to understand what the lift would be to administer this. The plan would be that we would process those honoraria on the same schedule that we do for the CVTA stipends, which is a quarterly payment. That feels manageable to us. The budget for this would be included in the MPO's Unified Planning Work Program, as with the staff time. So we would be, the PlanRVA would be reimbursed for the cost of the honorarium as well as the staff time to administer the program.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, a couple of comments, to the notice process. Doctor's offices will send emails and text, usually the day before, an appointment. I get the emails for PlanRVA in plenty of time, and I appreciate that. And I live for these meetings, including the CTAC. I reach out and
It just warms my heart. Thank you.
the benefit that I get from attending these, I would give the honorarium back. I learn a lot and it's informative. But if you could look into how doctor's offices do the text notice for those that might be delinquent or get lost in the real world. But thank you.
This was not an orchestrated anything, but Mr. Waddell, we are looking at a contact management system. It's something that we have identified through our community outreach that would be really helpful. We manage all of our outreach right now through a series of Excel spreadsheets. So having just gone through the discussion that we did about the financial management system, this organization has a lot of opportunity to modernize and to bring some of those types of more current best practices into place. We are evaluating the opportunities that exist out there and products for a content management system. And that would allow us to be able to do that type of communication that we don't have the capability to do right now. Our organization is putting together a grant application that if we were to be successful with the funding, might be able to support the investment in that type of a system. So thank you for bringing it up. And we're taking steps on our staff side to identify what solutions we could bring. And then we'll come back to the Public Outreach Committee and the board to be able to determine whether or not we can make those investments.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
And Mr. Whiteout, you said that you would probably give it back, and that's an option is to sign off on and saying you do not want it either. Or I said, you know, there are definitely some nonprofits that we work with that maybe someone would want to donate it to them, and that's something that we, you know, talked about also.
Well, where I'm a nonprofit, I would defer to your recommendation.
If I could just make one
Yes.
comment as a participant in last week's discussion who wasn't very familiar with this, and hearing all the work that the equity working group did to put this together, and then reviewing the policies and hearing the discussion and back and forth. I first want to acknowledge that there was really good hard work and thought put into what is a pilot. And I am now very much looking forward to hearing how this works for the CTAC group. Because of the opportunities that have been identified, this might be something that we want to implement going forward. It might be a huge mess. This particular body doesn't have to execute it, but the equity work group did a really good job putting it in place. And I look forward to hearing how it's managed.
Thank you. I'll share that with us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Any other comment?
Good job.
All right, we're gonna make it back to our executive director, Martha.
Thanks. Intergovernmental and environmental reviews are in your packet as always for review. I would like to introduce you to Sarah Stewart, who leads our regional resilience, emergency management and environment program. She's actually going to present an update to you this morning about our regional strategic plan. It's going to be a quick update, but it's going to be a nice segue to be able to introduce our guest speakers.
Good morning, everybody. I will try to keep this brief. So I'll give you a update and review of the regional strategic plan as we head towards June consideration of it by this commission board. We'll get to the handout in just a minute, so it'll make its way over here, don't worry. So the regional strategic plan is actually required by the Regional Cooperation Act, it's in Virginia State Code, and it is intended to guide the region, the district on matters that are of importance to more than one locality or are innately regional. So there are some that are actually listed in the Regional Cooperation Act. For example, transportation, economic development, environmental management. But it's at the discretion of the agency what might be included in that different topics. The regional strategic plan has a regional vision and goals that are coordinated with that vision, and it contextualizes the relationship, content, the processes, or functional or topic area plans. And then it obviously indicates kind of the role and the responsibilities of PlanRVA in serving the region through implementation. You can see, I brought it up here. There it is on page 12 of your agenda packet. You'll see that many of you are looking at it. So, good job. You'll know it's the one with the icons that runs down one side of the page. There we go. How did we get to where we are? So we've been working on this for over a year now. So we started by PlanRVA staff looking through locality comprehensive plans, strategic plans, regional plans that we have done, regional plans that our partners have done, a pretty comprehensive review of relevant documents in this space of what is planned and where we want to go. We've had 3 kind of key feedback sessions with the board or a committee of the board. You'll see in May, there was a public outreach and engagement committee meeting, and that was kind of a review of those draft vision components. So it was an earlier version of these items, the icons. Then you may remember the June joint annual meeting, there was a visioning exercise, a lot of fun, and there was a broad discussion of kind of regional issues. That narrowed those down, refined them a little bit. And then in December at the joint annual meeting, we had a presentation of these vision themes. The document has been shared with various groups across the region, the stakeholder groups, everybody from the Virginia Waste Management Authority, Chamber RVA, workbackers, broad swath across the region. And it was also featured at the Pathways to the Future Symposium on Pi Day. It has been advertised in media outlets. It is also posted on our webpage, and it has been sent by letter through notices to localities. And then, as I mentioned, it will be considered the June meeting of the commission. So what is this? Let's talk a little bit about the structure. Just to remind you, it is centered with that regional vision. So again, we'll go back to a few themes. That acts as the center is kind of a grounding point. And then there are topical or functional area plans that feed in nice chapters, essentially. You'll have your transportation chapter, you have your housing chapter, natural resources chapter. These core plans, so those are different core plans that surround it. Those have goals, objectives, strategies that are all in line with the vision, and then help guide us and partners in conducting maybe sub-area plans that might be on a more specific topic or a smaller geography, as well as different programs, projects, studies, data analysis, and then of course some key performance indicators that you can track over time in the different topic areas. The regional vision is just briefly the key themes are on this slide, but of course you can see the full detail in your packet. The thing I would like to underscore here is that these are 5 interconnected themes. They are interdisciplinary by nature. Each one relates to every other one. All of the core plans have these themes in some respect woven throughout them. Some may be more prominent in certain plans than others, but they are there, they are present. I'll conclude here, and this is where we'll transition to the handout, the colorful handout. So this is a timeline of the core plans that PlanRVA manages, and you'll see that most of them are in process, are ongoing, or in development. And there's one that will actually start soon, the hazard mitigation plan. You can look for more detail about these plans in this handout, in these boxes on pages 3 and 4. So I'll be happy to take any questions, but I just want to give you a bit of an orientation to the strategic plan and a bit of update.
Any questions?
Yeah. Thank you for a comprehensive plan. Looking last night, it's a proactive plan of execution. I'm impressed. Will there be at the end of the fiscal year a follow-up report on a report card, so to speak?
Yep. The intention is that, there will be a reporting on progress on the plans, consideration of any that were completed. And then those key performance indicators that I mentioned, we'll track those over time. Now, all of those haven't been identified. We're still in the process of completing some of the plans. And some of the plans are relatively new or they haven't been updated in a while. We don't have those performance indicators identified at this moment, but there would be kind of this tracking and on an annual basis of some sort.
Thank you.
Further comment?
Yes, just a quick question, when you're saying transportation, can you just kind of drill down a little bit for me? What do you mean?
So when we're talking about the core plan for transportation, we're thinking of the long range transportation plan. In fact, it's being branded. I did not mention the Pathways to the Future, but the long range transportation plan will be Pathways to the Future of Transportation. So that is like this overarching plan on just the topic of transportation. You'll see hints, all different kinds of sub-themes under transportation. You see road infrastructure, you see discussion of bridges, freight, biking, pedestrian, all different forms of transportation are relevant or included in that. That is true throughout the different core plans. They're meant to be these very comprehensive plans. And that's why you may have, and you will have, these supporting plans underneath that may be geographically more focused, say along a corridor that would span multiple geographies, or might be more focused on bike and pedestrian plans. We have that too. Does that help?
No.
Lay down?
Thank you.
Dr. Miller, the long range transportation plan is one of the 3 key core products of the TPO. And so the plan development process that we're in right now with the TPO serves as the transportation component of this. So it's a nesting in, it's not a duplication of what the TPO work is.
That's actually a good, I didn't focus on that, but there are plans that are created by partners that feed into this the regional strategic plan, almost ecosystem plans with this structure. So.
So I don't know, is the housing plan one of those that is done by different organizations?
I did not focus too much on that. It's about,
Yeah.
But yeah, mother, it was good.
It did not be.
It was good. Yeah.
Great segue.
Move things along, Chair.
All right.
Well, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Barbara J. Cox is going to provide that segue, introducing Javon Burton from Partnership for Housing Affordability, but really talking about how we connect Pathways to the Future, the regional strategic vision, and the topic of housing.
Thank you very much. And that was a great segue because that's exactly what we're going to be talking about next. And I also wanted just to steal a few minutes from my introduction to Javon to introduce and highlight the fact that we now have a drop down on our website for community development. And the focus in that area is economic development, housing, and our local, technical assistance that we're providing to localities. I want to thank and acknowledge Molly Gray, who has been the master of getting our website up and running. It's a work in progress. We'll always have new things to add to it, and hope for it to be a good resource for all of you in your localities. So Sarah talked about the core plans, and a core plan for economic development is going on right now, led by Ellen Cook, our comprehensive economic development strategy. We last did a comprehensive look at our economic development strategy with our steering committee back in 2014. And we're finding things have really changed in the last decade. And I think going forward, they're only likely to change even more. So this has been a really opportune time to be looking more comprehensively, working with our steering committee, looking at all aspects of the economy. We're also supported so much by GRP and their target industry cluster analysis,
And also with the Region 4 Growth and Diversification Plan that's now also being updated by Go Virginia. We'll be participating in both of those efforts. Supported programs, you may not have heard much about the Southeastern Regional Crescent Commission. We are one of 6 states that is part of this commission, and we do receive some support to provide local technical assistance to applicants for funding through the SCRC. Last year, the first inaugural year that we were involved, the Maggie Walker Community Land Trust was able to receive a grant of $500,000 through the SCRC to support their Oakwood Bellmead project. So we're really pleased that got off to a good start, and we're starting up a new fiscal year with that as well. And we hope at the culmination of our SEDS this year, we will be applying for designation as an economic development district, which will give us a refreshed opportunity every year to annually update and also have some financial resources to do that. So now I'm going to switch to housing. Our core plan, as Sarah mentioned, very often are from in partnership with agencies or nonprofits outside of PlanRVA, and that is with the Partnership for Housing Affordability. We're very closely aligned with the work of the PHA, and the housing framework is a big guidepost for us. Martha serves as the chairman of that board this year, and we also have staff that participate in the PHA regional policy agenda, which has been really helpful for us to get to know all the other nonprofits and those that are in that sector of housing. Of course, that framework has very specific goals, and we also will have specific measurements to measure that progress. I think one of our first opportunities to really actively participate in housing was by virtue of the Virginia Housing grant that all PDCs got in the last 3 years. And through that, in our partnership with PHA, we've been able to fund 10 or 12 different projects ranging from habitat to supportive housing. But it's put 268 housing units, affordable housing units on the ground, which we're really pleased at the success. And we're hoping for some additional funding. We've made application for the next opportunity, and we'll be hearing about that before the beginning of the fiscal year. And then we are also updating the market value analysis. It was done in 2022, and prior to that, 2017. What's really important this time is we are going to expand it to all 9, which will give a really good database and resources for each of the localities and for us regionally to think about how do we address housing in different ways in different neighborhoods and circumstances. And we're also involved in supporting things like the BIPOC homeownership through Wells Fargo. Wealth Opportunities Restored through homeownership, and working very closely with LISC and others on that particular project. Measuring progress. You've heard, I'm sure, a lot about RVA Rising and the Indicators project that we're working on. A group of nonprofit organizations and businesses, regional institutions, civic leaders, and everyday citizens that are working through us and through Community Foundation, United Way, and Richmond Memorial Health Foundation. So these are forming the indicators that will help us, particularly in housing and in the community development phase of our work, as well as these SEDS. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Javon Burton, who is the Executive Director of the Partnership for Housing Affordability. He's a VCU grad with a Master's in Public Administration, undergrad from Hampton-Sydney. He spent a year with AmeriCorps and was matched with PHA, to our good fortune. And he also worked at Virginia Housing and returned to PHA in 2019. He really takes a multifaceted approach to housing accessibility. He serves on the board of directors for the area Congregations Together in Service, otherwise known as ACTS, and chair of the Greater Richmond Continuum of Care and Housing Families First. So really glad that Joanne will be with us today. Thank you.
So I'm just gonna give an update on housing across the region, but before I do that, I want to talk about recent state bills that were signed by the governor, just to kind of update you all on what's happening at the state level. So I think three that probably are most pertinent for this audience would be one around real estate tax assessments, particularly for affordable rental properties. There is now going to be a law that allows assessors to, when they're looking at the fair market value for affordable rental properties, to use the income-based approach as opposed to your traditional comp approach. And the reason for that is if there's a multifamily market rate development, and then, you know, a block away, there's an affordable rental development. Traditionally, they've been assessed very similarly, which can be pretty devastating when you're in an area with rapidly increasing assessments on, you know, operating costs for those developments, particularly if it's a small nonprofit that just doesn't have reserves to cover that without raising rents. And usually at those affordable properties, you have restrictions on how you can raise rent. So their alternative would be to try to raise that money philanthropically, and that's not really sustainable. So now there's legislation in place, and the Department of Taxation is going to provide some kind of uniform form for localities and the assessor's office to look at, to understand how they can actually do that. And there are reporting requirements for the owners of those developments. So if they don't provide that necessary information, then they actually won't be allowed to take advantage of the income-based approach. So they have to provide the information to the local assessor's office. But if they do that, then they can be assessed based on the rental income that's being produced by those units at that development. So that'll be really helpful for a lot of providers of affordable housing who really have been seeing significant increases year over year with assessments. The other one is related to water and sewer connection fees. So local governments can now provide either partial or full reimbursement for those fees for any new residential development. And then the last one pertains to comprehensive plans. When a planning commission is going to be proposing a comprehensive plan to a governing body, they can include things like tiny homes and accessory dwelling units now within the residential portion of that plan. So just kind of clarifying some language, and they've defined what those two things mean, both tiny homes and accessory dwelling units within the code. So those are three things that I would be mindful of from a legislative standpoint that have been signed. There are still some budgetary items that kind of remain to be seen related to housing, particularly around 5,000 family bill that some of you may have heard about. It's kind of a pilot to provide rental assistance for families across the state. So that's just a quick overview of at the state level. When we get to regional, Barbara mentioned the PDC housing program that our region successfully implemented over the last 3 years. We applied again. We'll hear back in June if we were accepted, but that would be an additional $1.5 million to go towards projects to support gap financing across the region. Last time we were able to provide support to, I think, projects in 8 of the 9 jurisdictions here in the region. So we're hopeful that we can continue to spread that across the region and support projects that are in need of critical gap financing. But Virginia Housing also created a new program. They love the acronyms with these. This one's called WIT, or the Workforce Housing Investment Program. So basically, they're following the governor's initiative around economic development and housing. And so they created this program to say, if there is a new job announcement that has, it's going to create at least 100 or 150 new jobs, and it's located within 30 minutes of an affordable housing project, then you can receive some gap financing if there's a local government match at a certain level. So we've actually submitted an application for this program. And the good thing about our region is that there's a job announcement basically anywhere, it's within 30 minutes. So it was pretty easy to find something that fit. And forget what the total request is, but they're willing to provide if it's multifamily, I think they'll provide at least 40,000 a unit. And if it's home ownership, it may be a little bit less, but it's still a significant amount of money that they're willing to provide as long as there's a local government match. So we submitted some funds on behalf of our region, or an application on behalf of our region just a couple of weeks ago, and we'll know the outcome of that later this year in June as well. There are some new tools that I just want to point you all to that could be helpful for your work as your localities are exploring housing a little bit more. I'll point out the zoning atlas just because it's a really interactive tool that HD Advisors put together, or Housing Forward Virginia rather, put together last year. And it just enables you to kind of take a deep dive into zoning, not just in our region, but also Northern Virginia, Hampton Roads, and now Richmond region is the third area in the state to have that tool to really look at what zoning looks like in our region, and as that pertains to residential by right and other things. On the supply side, I just want to hit on this really quickly. A lot of people talk about supply and demand and the need, but I will point out that we have quite a bit of great work happening here in the region on supply. There's over 3,100 units in our pipeline throughout the region, and those that have been either awarded for funding are under construction or will be under construction fairly soon. And this is for rental. And on the homeownership side, there's been a lot of just programs that have been created over the last few years to address homeownership. And I think that kind of shift we're seeing where rental has been the focus because of the scale of the need, but the shift we're seeing towards homeownership in particular, I think it's just driven by how out of reach homeownership has become for so many occupations and households in our region and across the country, quite frankly. So this just shows you a quick graphic of some common but really important occupations here in the region, and the income that's needed to buy a median value home versus the salaries for those jobs. So if you were to look at an exhaustive list, you would find that there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of occupations that would be in the same situation, right? And they're not able to afford a median value home. So I do want to point out, because I know that we have some representatives from PlanRVA in this room, and I know Mr. Cooper, you were at the groundbreaking on Saturday at Stylecraft Mulberry Crossing. So PlanRVA created their housing trust fund to specifically support this effort of first-time home ownership, and we've been able to award I think a little over 80 units thus far.
I was wondering where Helios was.
So that was at the a project in Verina that's going to provide 25 affordable units for first-time home buyers, and there's another one that just broke ground last week in the Fairfield district, and that will provide another 25 units for first-time home buyers. And that's going to be built by Stylecraft. And so what we've been really surprised and impressed with thus far is the interest from for-profit builders in particular, who have seen this as a way to increase their pipeline. And we have so many pre-application calls with them, and they're like, okay, so what's the catch? And then we get through it and they're like, this is something they really want to support. They have folks that show up to their developments pretty regularly who just simply would not be able to afford the product that they're trying to sell. And so now they're really excited that they have a program that can help serve that need, in addition to help with marketing to buyers that normally they just wouldn't be able to provide housing to. So it's been a wonderful partnership thus far, and we're excited to see some more units here, some more examples of what those will look like. And these are pretty old. I know that the Parkside one in Verina, they've already kind of pre-sold quite a few units and have already been built. So we've sort of seen a lot of progress. And the Discovery Ridge project in Tuckahoe we've had 2 closings there thus far, and the third one will take place next week. So that's been really exciting to see that kind of bubble up. I'll just move on to just some items that I think, regionally, I talked about what was happening at the state level and new legislation. I do want to highlight just ways in which locally economic development authorities have been involved in housing and I'll point out the city's performance grant program because this has been really one of the more successful ways that we've seen the development community get involved in affordability. And this is essentially the city through their EDA providing a rebate on the incremental increase and assessments or improvements rather for those developments. And it's, it's gonna be over time. It starts kicking in at year 10 and then can go up to year 30. But it's been really enticing for developers helping to reduce their operating costs significantly. So both nonprofits and for-profit developers have applied for this. And Dr. Newell, I believe that the latest numbers in the budget indicate that this has supported a little over 2,000 units thus far that will be in the pipeline. So it's really helped the city get to scale and supporting units. And then another way that EDAs can be involved in housing, I'll point to what Henrico has done at their Glenwood Farms development, which had been kind of a pain point for the county, which is some of the conditions there for residents, and they were able to work with their EDA to put together a loan package that is going to help with the redevelopment there for not only multifamily, but it's also going to be home ownership units there, and making sure that they can carry out a tenant relocation plan for the folks that have been living there while this redevelopment is taking place, ensuring that they have somewhere to stay. So it's been, I think, really unique in our region, and we actually have seen that some of these partners have gone across the state to talk about some of these initiatives, because a lot of other places across the Commonwealth are trying to figure out how they could do some of the things that have been happening here in the Richmond region. So that's really encouraging to see. Just to kind of tidy up the point around economic development, we actually worked with a local firm, Mancom Economics. So they do a lot of analysis of what's the potential, impact from an economic standpoint, revenue standpoint, of certain policies. Not just housing. They're doing a lot on data centers. They're doing a lot on, some of the more emerging issues. And they were able to do that analysis for the Henrico Trust Fund program. And what they found is that after 5 years, it would generate over $6.3 million in local tax revenue and have hundreds of millions of dollars in economic impact. And so I think just kind of further reiterates the point that housing is really a critical engine for economic development. And then, the last thing I'll tidy up on the public sector side is just around local housing strategies. You heard the state bill that will now allow you to include things like tiny homes and accessory dwelling units in your comprehensive plan. I think there's just a lot of opportunities at the local level, whether that's adopting, a housing strategy that your board or council can adopt that really kind of guides how you are going to address the issue, putting together a housing advisory committee, like I know New King County has done that recently to figure out what they can do to address their specific needs. But it's just really kind of one of the first steps that you could take to guide the work, and that can be supported by other entities, and it doesn't all have to be borne by the local government. And then I'll switch to the private sector, because this is something that we've been trying to really nudge that sector to be more involved. So we created a corporate playbook to really kind of give them a step-by-step guide as to how they can invest and be more involved in housing. And it really just lays out examples across the country where private corporations and other entities have kind of pooled funding together or leveraged land that they have within their portfolio for residential development, partnering with nonprofits or partnering with organizations that are committed to serving their actual employees. So if they know that housing is a barrier for talent retention from them and talent attraction, then that's kind of a leverage point that you can think about how we can, take advantage of available land and create opportunities for employees there. So we've been working a lot with a lot of corporate groups, in particular the Management Roundtable, and some of the things they're thinking about doing that are pulled from this corporate playbook. And I think that we'll kind of see what their priorities will be here in the coming months. But that's just kind of a quick overview of some of the things that are happening across the region, and I'm happy to open it up to any questions. But I'll just say that Martha and her team have been really really helpful over the last year or so, and just providing additional support and getting more involved in housing space and kind of helping connect to economic development, transportation, and other issues that we know are really important. So thank you all for the time, and happy to open up to any questions.
Yes. Hey, Javon, it's good to see you.
Good to see you.
I have a question about just your original point is with regard to assessed, meaning that it sounds like to me that there was some legislation that was out there to provide some sort of relief for multifamily, when assessed. Is there a mechanism in there that is gonna get passed on to the renter? Like, how is that gonna work? So if the owner is getting assessed at a lower value, that it's dropping the rents?
I don't think the bill specifically addresses that. What it's really trying to address is that, let's say, for example, you have an organization like Urban Hope that provides rents at a very, very low rate, I mean, 30 to 40% of AMI for the residents that are being assessed the same way that a market value property would, a market rate property would. That's been, I mean, that can put someone out of business. And so it's just to try to prevent them from being in a position where they either have to raise rents, but they don't want to do because they're mission oriented, or they're going to have to try to raise that difference philanthropically, which is it's not going to be sustainable for them to do that. So it's going to be according, and I haven't seen the Department of Taxation is going to work on what that form will look like. But the higher rents that you're offering at an affordable place, the lower, not the lower, but basically your assessment would be based on that. So if you're providing really, really low rents, then the income approach is going to be more favorable. But if your rents are pretty close to market rate already, there's not going to be that much of a difference.
And then just a follow-up question as far as housing stock is concerned. One of the challenges I'm having in my district is a lot has been approved. I think it's true for Chester County, it's been a lot approved, but then yet the developers are not moving forward. So there's no sunset clause. So in the event that they made, I mean, we're talking something that goes back all the way to the 80s, where it was approved, it was zoned, it's ready to go, and now they're just sitting on it. And I'm curious to know, has there been any discussion? I suspect that there would be some measure of unintended consequences to put in a sunset clause, but yet there is a lot that's already been approved, just sitting there.
I haven't heard any bills. I'd have to look through the Virginia Housing Alliance tracker to see but I don't think there was anything around that. My assumption is that that would be a tough sell if there were going to be legislation at the state level, given Virginia's pretty strong property by the state.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, to your point about we need to increase the streamlined development,
Right.
and that's just not happening. You're talking about approved lots.
I'm sorry?
Approved lots
Yeah, I
specifically.
mean, it's all sitting ready to go. We can approve until the cows come home, no pun intended, and at the same time, they just sit on it. So I mean, I've approved things in my tenure that they're just sitting. So just kind of curious.
Nothing I've seen.
I can answer that, Mark. There was no legislation. We tried to push for that. There's no appetite in the General Assembly to do it. I pushed for it years ago because you have zoning cases that'll sit there for 10, 20 years in several in my district that were never acted on. And some of it also has to do with what's not coming out of the ground right now is financing. Because of the markets and the rates the way they were, the money was tight. It wasn't available for these companies to get financed to actually start working on these projects.
Hey, did you have your hand up?
I'm allowed to speak for you, Dan, because this goes back to my time in the town of Ashland, but as you know, we had a pretty major project that we had written a sunset clause into. And when they came forward 24 years later to build the project, our sunset clause wasn't legal. It just didn't hold.
It violates state law, so it's not a valid property.
Yeah, you just couldn't hold them accountable to what they said 25, even the zoning didn't work.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, sir. Got a question. Thank you for an informative presentation, and I see you're trying to address a real critical need in the community and all of that. You mentioned something about sustainable funding. Can you give me a synopsis of what your funding for these programs are? Private funding, tax credits, land use considerations, and the proportion for each. I'm a little aware of the Maggie Walker Trust that gets funds from large banking institutions, but if you could give more detail, please.
Just so that I'm clear, was there a specific context around?
Where's the money coming from, I guess?
Okay, so if you're talking about multifamily, the number one funding source is going to be the low income housing tax credit program. And that's the case across the country. It's really gap financing for large multifamily projects. It's administered by Virginia Housing at the state level. And it's a competitive process, so you have to submit an application every year. If you're gonna do it, it's called 9%. There's another form of it called 4%, which is a little bit different, and those applications are rolling, but not to get too technical. But that's the number one source for multifamily. If you're looking at a organization like Matthew Walker, where they're gonna be providing permanent homeownership for first-time buyers, they're gonna use a combination of private philanthropy. They may have some local government funding and some state government funding, but it's gonna be a good mix. Even on those multifamily projects that use tax credit funding, they're still going to need to cobble together other sources to cover the gap. So even that's a lot of times not enough. A great example is supportless housing, which provides permanent supportive housing for very, very low income individuals with permanent disabilities and that need services on site. Oftentimes with their projects, they have to have at least 15 to 20 sources of funding just to make the deal work, because it's that costly. So there's a lot of different funding sources in the space that it's alphabet soup with all the different acronyms, but those are the big ones. Multifamily is going to be the tax credit, and then there's entitlement fundings that Chesterfield and Ranco and the city of Richmond receive from the federal level that can support things like home repairs, can support other services around housing and in some cases development. But those are based on population size and poverty rate and other things and can change year to year.
Thank you.
Mr. Coffey?
Could you elaborate on the, you're talking about the comprehensive plan with the tiny houses? Can you elaborate a little bit about that?
That bill basically seemed like more of a clarification that localities can include things like tiny homes, accessory dwelling units, which are just, some people call them granny flats, that you can have attached or detached on a lot where there's a primary dwelling unit. And say it's for a senior or someone like that, who's no longer able to independently live and needs kind of a caretaker permanently. But it's just to say that you can include that language in your comprehensive plan in the section that's now required when housing. I think all comprehensive plans have to include a chapter on housing now, so it's just allowing for those housing types.
Here, two things. Do you have the bill number that passed relating to allowing the assessors to make the change based on income and not on?
If I can, it's in my phone.
Okay, so if I can get that later, that'd be helpful, number one. And then number two, in relation to the tiny homes, there was actually legislation initially that was introduced, they were trying to make it a by right issue that you could have once the zoning was passed, by right, someone would be able to put in a tiny home or an accessory dwelling unit on their property. So can imagine taking any neighborhood that you have already, and then all of a sudden, everybody comes forward and says, I want to put an accessory dwelling unit on my house now for my in-laws. We do it through conditional use in Chesterfield County, we allow for it to happen. But there are many jurisdictions in Virginia that didn't even allow for it to be considered before. And so it's an addition that they made to allow for localities, to at least add that to their, we followed this bill pretty close, actually, to allow it to their comprehensive plan and to allow but some didn't even allow it by conditional use. So it's just an opportunity to kind of say, hey, by the way, you can do this. But imagine trying to, for example, trying to plan for schools in the future when all of a sudden the neighborhood, everybody decides, well, my kids can move in there now, and then we'll just build them a house, and then they can build a house, and then how do you even plan for infrastructure, for transportation, for road, everything? Big issue.
Any more? Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. It's very informative. On our recap of today's meeting, Ms. Schickel and her team will send out the bill information so that you can have it that way. That was a good point. Coming back to Ms. Schickel, CGA report or partner report.
Yeah, thank you. There are reports in the packet that were distributed for CBTA and the TPO, and I think there was a handout of the Emergency Management Alliance report. So those are there for information, just to keep you up to date on what's happening with those other bodies that are in our orbit.
Any member comments or local committee updates? I will update everyone. The town of Ashland has officially housed its tree. So the Christmas tree is no longer on the lawn. We might have to buy new bulbs because the red bulbs no longer look red, they look gold. Because it was up so long. Anyone else want to update their locality? Comment?
Jessica, did you get your tree yet?
Of course I do.
She's happy now, she has her tree.
32-foot tree. They get one.
I don't think it's bigger than mine.
It's not big of a deal, all right.
All right, our next meeting will be.
Mine's natural, it stays there year round. Okay, mine's been there long.
Chair.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, that I opened that door.
Over there.
I actually think it's looking, it's gonna have 2 trees now.
All right, so see enough to do.